You mentioned something that piqued my interest, which is some difficult ones or stubborn ones.
Yes.
How stubborn, can you describe a stubborn chimpanzee? And then
Well, each chimpanzee each has their own individual character. They are not the same. Just like also as human beings we have. And even their character evolves with the different interactions they have with the different chimps and also with us, the people that care for them. Their behavior, their moods, their response to certain stimuli evolves depending on the environment that they're in. But there are those who are, we like calling them the difficult ones, depending on difficulty in what. There are those which are within the community, they are the troublemakers. They are the ones that pick on others. They are the ones that start fights. They are the ones that instigate. You know, like I said, working with chimps is fascinating. You never get bored. We now know those that just like to cause fights. They don't get involved, but they can hold a grudge against another individual and instigate the others to attack that individual if they have crossed them. We know those, which has been done experimentally, that they know that to be able to get something from another individual, I need to also offer something. So we've seen them actually batter. I have a piece of jackfruit, very favorite. I'll give it to you if you'll give me the bigger portion of posho that you have. Or like the females, if they are in season, the males know that they have to offer something to the female to get the opportunity to mate with them. We see it also in the way they relate with each other to create, call them friendships or bonds with each other. But we also know there are those that, like I said, cause trouble. They instigate fights with the others. They pick on the others. They are bullies. They always pick on the others. Even now, the way they respond to us, there are those that, like I said, may be a bit difficult, but they are difficult because they have also a motive of what they want. We have chimps that we expect them to go out every morning, so we open the doors and they will simply refuse to go until you give them an extra reward. Yeah, but you also don't want to create a certain behavior that you always reward them even for doing bad. So we've just, and you know, this is unintentional. The guys now over time learn, okay, instead we'll call back the one that they don't like and to force them to come out. And that's what I say by being a bit difficult. They don't go with the flow. They don't just simply follow what the others do. They have their own individual characters. They make their own decisions independent of what the group might have decided. There are those which, like specifically talking about the annual health checks that we do, we have to sedate them and take them in. Now, the sedation, we've tried with time to make sure as pain-free as possible. We use hand injections. But an injection is an injection. Even adults fear them. So they know inevitably it will happen. They will maybe work with you or they will cooperate. But then they'll reach a point and then they stop cooperating. Even if you offer a reward or even if you offer a threat or something, and simply make it difficult for you. There are so many stories, if I could tell you. For example, sometimes you have to dart them. If I can't do an hand injection, maybe it's not safe for them, it's not safe for me, and I have to do darting them. But they know that to dart them, I have to put them in a small space. They will refuse to go there. Or if I am successful in putting in a small space, they may actually willingly go into the small space. There's a particular chimp that would come with a lot of hay. Then he would simply keep throwing the hay around because he knows it makes it difficult for me to see where to dart.
Yeah.
That is the level of intelligence that chimpanzees have. I've not seen that with any other animal. Yeah, they will roll around at breakneck speed because they know it is very difficult for you. There is only one particular part that you want to target. Yeah, and they make it as difficult for you as possible. So those are ones that say, yeah. We always aim for places which have flesh so that you don't cause injury in any other part. So they make it as difficult for you as possible. We sometimes collect samples, maybe feces or urine. And we wait for them to urinate when then we hold a stick with a cup at the end and we collect the urine because we want fresh urine. And the chimp will come, knows it once you collect urine, it is hanging there, and to start urinating, Then you put it and then it stops. Then you move it away, then it starts again. Just, it knows what your intent is. It is losing nothing, but it just says you're not going to get through that easily.
You're not going to get this urine.
So that is why it says sometimes they're just a bit difficult. But it's part of their nature, and with the individuals, it's part of their character. And we know maybe this time it's not in the mood, maybe we'll wait for it a little later, because some of them, even if you try to bribe them or offer them a reward, they'll refuse. Others, you have to offer them a reward. When I just started out, they used to bully me, so to speak. They always want to bully the new people, the new individuals. They would snatch my specs, but they would not destroy them. So they know that they're delicate enough. So they don't want to cause damage, but they want to bully you, so to speak. Snatch your specs and then spend an hour with them, then hand them back. Or in exchange for a treat, or sometimes simply give it back to you. But those are things that we learn in terms of working with them. You get to learn their behavior, and they respond to you also as well. If you are kind to them, they are kind to you. If you are hostile to them, they are very brutal. They can be very brutal to you. They will target you specifically. Yeah. So that is also why it is very important that if you are a person that works with animals, you like working with them, especially chimpanzees.
As a stranger, if I go with you to the island, we are together, or I go around, how will they respond to me?
They are very protective of their environment, and even in the wild, they are very territorial. Let me use that word. And also territorial in terms of the community members. Even with other stranger chimps, their immediate response is to be hostile to them. Why? Because you're going to come and compete for the same resources that we have. So just like humans, you're suspicious and hostile to strangers, naturally. With time you learn that maybe facial expression or whatever, you may be a bit more open to them, also depends on your character. But naturally their first response will be cautious. If you are with a person they trust, like me or another carer, they might allow the person who is with you benefit of doubt to say, okay, if he's with one, so maybe it's acceptable. But if you are alone, they will definitely be hostile towards you. They are very territorial, and if you enter their space, you are an intruder. And an intruder must be gotten rid of. That is why we are cautious about visitors, the proximity they may have to the chimps, both in the wild, because you're entering their space. And there's a certain safe distance where you'll be able to respond, or where they also feel, yes, we are used to seeing human beings coming, like maybe in Chihuahua, they come and watch us all day. But there are other places maybe where that has not happened, and the sight of a human makes them immediately cautious, and they become defensive. So that was what also has fueled human-wildlife conflict in some of the places where it's happening. They either try to avoid you, or when they meet you and they can't avoid you, they become aggressive. They attack. It is not generally aggression, but they are protecting the territory in which they are, and they consider you an intruder. So that is what would be happening. They would be aggressive towards you. Now, at the Ngamba Island, it even takes it a little bit step further. They see you as a stranger, you are an intruder, you are in their space, they believe you shouldn't be there. And they can tell that these are, usually it happens, they know now, like for example, let me break it down a bit easier. It's a tourist site, so we get strangers every day. So the strangers come and go. So those ones, they have no problem with them, apart from a few individuals. Then there are those who stay, maybe volunteers. Then they're like, this one we saw yesterday, we've seen today. They are not supposed to be here. Then they become aggressive towards them. They get rocks and start throwing at them. Yes, because they say, now, who is this one? We don't know. So they show their aggression towards them. They vocalize, they display. In other situations, other sanctuaries, I've seen they get feces because they know that humans don't like feces and throw the feces at you. They spit at you. So they express their displeasure. Yeah, as best they know.
They want you to go.
Yes.
Okay.
Until you approach them, now you have to take the step to approach them and show that you're a friend. Then you still go through the process of acceptance, which may be short or long, depending.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the other thing that I want you to speak about is you have 54 chimps
Yes.
at the island. So how do the 54 chimps, do they know each other? Do
Yes.
they recognize each other? Are they friends to each other? Do they move in one group?
Chimps generally are gregarious. Gregarious means they live in communities. They depend on each other for security, for food. Just like in the wild, just like human beings do. We form a community for security purposes, security of food, safety from predators and things like that. So what we've done at Uganda, at Ngamba is unique. We've created or forged the community from the different rescues. So they have come from different situations and we've made them live together and form a community. And forming a community means now they have different castes within the community. In any community, there are those that are leaders, there are those that are disciplinarians. I'm not talking about humans. There are those that are, like I said, the troublemakers. There are those that are the carers. There are those that are providers, etc., etc. So that's exactly how it is at Ngamba. They recognize each other. They know even if it's not visual, from voice, from vocalizations of each other. So they even try to find each other as they would in the wild, in a normal wild community. They call out to each other when they're out in the forest to make sure, okay, so and so, hey, hello, are you there? In their own language. And so they even when one of them is missing, they recognize it and realize it. And when that person resurfaces, they welcome them back with joy. Because, for example, we might have to retrieve a chimp for medical reasons. Maybe it is sick and we have to treat it in isolation and we have to take it away and separate it from the group, maybe for a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, or even longer. When it comes back, it is welcomed back because they recognize their colleague, and they even embrace. They come and embrace and welcome them back. So even some of them which may not come back in the evening and spend the night, when these ones come out, these ones are waiting for them to greet them, and so they recognize each other. They call out to each other, and they also form special bonds with individuals. You will find chimps that are more closer to certain other individuals, and that is something that we also study over time to see what are those interactions. They interact with each other and show bonding through certain behaviors like grooming. Grooming is a behavior where they care for each other or show care for each other by removing dirt and parasites, and whether they're existent or not. And it's a relaxing kind of benefit that the recipient gets, and it shows a connection between the two individuals. So we also study that, who do they bond with, and that helps us to determine what is the hierarchy. Because low ranking will always submit to the higher ranking, and part of the submission is always also to either offer them food or to give them their space or to groom them, so that next time there's a fight, don't attack me. I'm your friend. I'm always here to take care of your needs. So as a community, they have those different connections and they have those different interactions amongst themselves.
So when they fight, actually, do you intervene to separate them?
The fights, because the setup of Ngamba, we have a forest, which is the biggest part of the island, about 95%, and where they are allowed to go out and live as they would in the wild. And that's what makes it unique. It's not like a zoo where they're confined and just have maybe a short time out. We want them to behave as they would in the wild. Yeah. So they have a big forest to themselves, and they will have fission and fusion. They will bond, they will fight. And when they fight, normally they fight to make a point. The males want to show dominance. There are those who are bullies and take pleasure in fighting and injuring others. Then there are those who gang up against others. Like, for example, a bully might attack another chimp, then they call the support of the others, please come and help me, this one is picking on me, and they come and help. Or they choose not to because they say, no, this one is such a bad bully, he will also attack me in the process. Now, when it comes to interventions, we typically do not unless the life of a chimp is threatened. But like I said, it's a forest, so many of these interactions we don't see. We can only hear them. So sometimes we only see the results thereafter. Recently, we lost a chimp, which was very, very unfortunate. It was not unwell, it was healthy, but it was a result of a fight, and not that it was killed per se, but it got injured in the process, and it was a fatal wound, and unfortunately, it bled out and died. So those are some of the consequences that happen from some of those unfortunate interactions. They may not be intentional, but we do know, even from Dr. Jane Goodall's study and the study that has gone on for the last 60 years, that sometimes they're intentional to kill their colleagues, or even when they're hunting to kill other animals. So they can also be intentional to injure themselves, even as members of the same community.
Let's turn to their communication. When is their vocalization? That's how they communicate. Do you understand what they are always communicating? Can you communicate? How do you communicate to them actually?
Okay. When you work with animals, or generally if you work with animals, you get to learn their language a little bit. You may not get fluent in it, but you get to learn. So their voice box is not as well developed as us, and their tongue, so they are not able to form words like us. Yeah. And that is one of the big differences between humans and chimps. But the vocalizations, there are some vocalizations which are universal. And it is coupled with a facial expression, or body language, so to speak. So the language is not only the vocalizations, but also the expression that you give to reinforce whatever it is they're trying to communicate. So we learn and know, most especially from combining the two. What vocalization is it making? Is it a pant? Is it a grunt? Is it, and coupled with the facial expression, then we can tell that it is being aggressive, it is throwing a tantrum, it is seeking help, it is greeting, or it is asking for something, or asking either for help or to get your attention, or different things, or it is even simply saying, keep your distance, don't come near me. So those are the simple communications. It is really basic and simple, but you learn it over time. And they are very expressive in the way they do. So it's pretty easy to learn their language, so to speak. Yeah. And how do we communicate with them? Sometimes we use the same vocalizations. Like, for example, we know they get feeding at particular times, so they will show up. But times when we want to call them, we know the panthoods for calling them. We know the panthoods for greeting. We know the panthoods, they also say thank you when they are happy. So we also know that when they do something, we also say thank you. So we know those vocalizations with time. And also the facial expressions. There's a way in which they bar their teeth, either to show fright or to show submission, and we also do the same. And we teach our team, and part of the programs we do in the community for management of human-wildlife conflict is for them to learn some of those cues that the chimps can read, and show that maybe I'm not a threat. Like we teach children that go to school and have to go through forests and encounter these animals. How do they, instead of provoking them by throwing sticks and yelling and screaming, how can they respond so that the chimp understands that this is not a threat and they're simply passing through, and they don't become aggressive towards them and injure them in the process? Or even if they attack them, what they can do to show submission so that they don't get severe injuries. So that has come from simply observing them and doing the same things they do to them and seeing how they respond to it. And then we replicate that with some of the trainings that we do for new staff and also for our community programs.
Taking you back to one of the issues that I've already spoken about, which is chimpanzees usually want to be a group.
Yes.
Or a community. And the chimpanzees that you have at the island come from different places. So how long does it take for, if you bring in a new chimpanzee, how long does it take for this chimp to be integrated in the community, to be welcomed by others?
That is a very interesting question. And there is no one answer to that. It is dependent on so many factors. It is dependent first on the sex of the animal. In the wild, males typically stay with the same group their entire lives. unless the group splits, then they can be part of a new group, but with community members that were part of an old group. It is females that can move from one community to another. The young females, when they get of age, puberty, or when they're going to, ready to give birth, they move out of the community they were born in and join another community. And that has helped with genetic diversity between the different communities. But the males stay with that group. And from that already they have innately more welcoming to females. A new female is more acceptable than a male. A male is seen as new competition for the females. Male is seen as a threat to the hierarchy of whoever is, maybe it is big and it will threaten the top dog or the boss or the alpha males, or it is in the middle and will still threaten those ones. Or even if it is small, it will still threaten those other males that are at that level, and they will be hostile towards it. So males are a lot more difficult to integrate, so they take longer. Second, it is their capacity to be able to create bonds or connection with other chimpanzees. Now, some of them have innately that ability. They reach out. Then there are those that are loners, maybe because, like I said, they have also gone through different situations. There are chimps that we have rescued and received that have never ever seen any other chimpanzee.
Oh.
Yeah, from their understanding. So maybe they were captured when they were infants, or they were born in captivity, and they only know how to interact with humans. And they have been brought up like that, maybe as a house pet, and now it is in a situation where it is seeing other chimpanzees, and it needs to learn how to connect with them, and that takes a process. Then there are those that maybe their character, they are, let me use the word loosely, disrespectful. Yeah? So those ones also makes it more difficult. Those that don't want to submit to authority, so to speak, or to submit to the seniors, it also takes them a lot longer because they'll keep getting picked on until they show that they can submit. So many times it depends on the individual character and how they're able to read the community and know how to respond to the different individuals. The quicker they know how to create who can be my friend, who can back me up, whom can I also back up, who is a potential enemy and whom should I avoid, because some of them, they try to be too friendly and they want to be friendly with aggressive chimps and they get injured. So that takes us back a little bit in the term of integration. So it is a myriad of factors. So our process is very methodical and systematic. We already know the chimps that are friendly. We already know that those that are not as aggressive. We start with those ones. We start with the same age group. We start with the females because they are a bit more accepting, especially of younger chimps, because most of the rescues come as younger chimps. So they have a motherly instinct. And if we can get one of them to adopt them, then they can offer some protection to them. So depending also on how they make those connections, the period of time it takes for integration varies from chimp to chimp. It can be as quick as a couple of months to as long as years.
And on leadership, that hierarchy of leadership, how do we come to have that hierarchy? Is it the chimp that has stayed there for a long time? Is it the chimp that proves to be the toughest that becomes the leader? How do we come up with that leadership hierarchy?
That is another very interesting thing that I found working with chimps. Working with other wildlife and generally working with animals, it is usually the meanest, the biggest, the toughest that comes out as the leader of the pack. Apart from a few other species, maybe like wolves. But with chimps, it's unique. It is that individual that will offer the element of strength, but also protection. Yeah. So to be able to have those elements, they need to be an individual that also knows how to make connections with other chimps. Because however big you are, if you don't have other chimps backing you up, and particularly the females play a big role in, let's say, I don't want to use the word determine who the alpha will be, but they play a big role in offering their support to a particular individual that will eventually become the alpha male. The alpha males, you might be a big, strong, stronger than all the other males, but if you don't have the support of the females, you'll never be alpha. And it's a little bit similar to us humans. The heirs in certain families are selected by the females because they believe this is the person or individual that will be able to provide the protection and stability that we need in the community. And it is simply like that. There are a number of articles that have been done by local journalists on the chimp politics, because also it depends on the alliances that they have with other peers, because oftentimes we've seen them ally, like I can ally myself to you because I know with your support I'll become the alpha, or I'll help you to become the alpha. Then I'll come and stab you in the back and throw you over because we have the same allies. And that is a story that is very much loved by journalists that come to Ngamba. One of the alpha males came to become alpha by supporting another much bigger and stronger chimp. And as soon as the chimp became alpha, after 2 weeks he overthrew him. And many times that happens on a one-on-one fight, because now you're at the same level, you have the same allies, and the other chimps will let you fight it out and decide who is the top dog. And that is what happened in that instance. It knew that without getting this one who has already these supporters, I will not become alpha. So let me support him, he becomes, then I take him off.
Okay, that was a good one. So back to this experiment that you did.
Yes.
The study that was, whose result was the study. What was hard about it? What was simple about it?
Well, the difficulty with most studies is to be able to design the experiments, to produce, to reflect what it is that you are actually trying to get. Basically, to design the experiment to be able to answer the question to answer the question that you have as your theory, your research question. That is always the most difficult part, because it's sometimes difficult to know how the chimps will respond to the design. Like I said, they make decisions. Now we were wondering, will the chimps be able to identify that this is a picture of a fruit? Should we have to make it 2-dimensional or 3-dimensional? Then we relied on previous studies where now someone else had done a study to say chimps can recognize. So they were simply showing them pictures of other chimps within the community. And we relied on that. Okay, yes, now we can use visual prints. So we rely a lot on data that has previously been collected to be able to help us to design these studies. And that is sometimes the tricky bit on being able to, and then also to determine what is the reward. What is it going to make it worthwhile? Because you may come up with a reward that the chimp feels, it is not worth going through all this trouble to even participate in the study. Then some of the studies where we need cooperation, determining which individuals, again, we'll have to go back and rely on our observational data to know who is likely to cooperate with who in terms of the individual chimps. So the design is the most difficult part. Once you get that over with, it is pretty easy. Another tough bit may be a training phase to make sure that they understand the experiment and know that this is what they need to do to get a reward, or but of course you variate it. Sometimes you may actually show them a picture of a fruit and there's actually nothing inside. So will they know that you've tricked them, and how will they respond to that? So that also becomes tricky and sometimes difficult. I remember we designed sometime a study whereby it is like a puzzle box. They would have to solve the puzzle and get a reward, and the puzzle keeps changing. It's not always the same place that they will have to touch or do. And sometimes the chimps get frustrated because they are unable to solve the puzzle and simply destroy the entire thing. So those are some of the challenges we go through. So you have to make sure that you make it easy enough for them to be able to not get that level of frustration. So that's the difficult bit of it. But once you get that solved, then the rest is easy. Then after that, you just simply collect data of a determined period of time with your sample number that you want to get, and then the rest is easy. You do analysis and make your inferences.
Yes. Apart from this study, so what else? You're always doing a lot of studies. What else are you currently studying that we should expect very soon? Well,
we are modifying. Like this study, you make a presentation and peers ask you questions and you say, okay, but if you added this element into it, that would either strengthen your theory that they can actually rationalize or weaken it. And that advises future studies. So we are continuously evolving these studies to test. Literally what we're trying to test is their level of intelligence. And then we compare. Many of these studies we also do in humans. Our counterparts, not ourselves. They compare with toddlers in schools and compare and see to what level is the intellect the same. So I would say that is another aspect that is going to come to see, because even as we do the studies, we do different age ranges, say chimp of this age, chimp of this age. We know at a certain level chimps lose interest. Also we know depending on the sex. From all the studies we've done, we know that females are a little bit more intelligent than the males. They are a bit more patient to be able to solve problems, and they cooperate better than males. So we design future studies based on that. We're like, if we bring in a new element, we need to make the males cooperate better. If we put an element of not simply a reward of food, if we maybe give another reward, we need to make it better to cooperate with another male or with a female, something like that. So that is how we do subsequent studies, but mostly it is to reinforce the theories we have. Then along the way, you may develop another theory. Like you develop a theory and say maybe chimps, I'm trying to think outside the box here and say maybe say, can a chimp, let's say, recognize a vocal command or instruction or communication from a member that is not of its community? Yeah. Will it be able to know that this grunt actually means this? Because they also have their own language within the language. There are those things which are universal, but there are those which are unique to the community. Yeah, so those are some of the questions that we now come up with, and then we start thinking, how can we design the study? And then we design it and we try it out.
Okay. I think second last for me is, there is another study, recent study, which I read and which I featured in my newsletter about chimps in the wild, those ones that are still in the forest, the fruits that they eat, that they like, they contain alcohol, the elements that make up alcohol. And then when, actually the study was saying that the alcohol elements in those wild fruits are very strong, to the extent that I think a chimp would be taking alcohol that is 3 times of what humans would take in a day. Yes. Have you observed that? Do chimps drink alcohol if you give it to them?
Generally speaking, well, let's first define alcohol. Alcohol normally comes from a process of fermentation of sugars. And there have been so many stories, not even just experiments, where you've heard about it. Monkeys that eat certain fruits that have lay on the ground and fermented for some time. Elephants, these stories about them, hyenas, whatever. We've not done those experiments on Ngamba because particularly we believe introducing alcohol compromises their welfare. And first and foremost, our research must not compromise the welfare of the individual. So that's why we don't do any invasive studies. We don't want to cause any harm to that will in any way compromise their welfare. So we don't. But that said, we've had instances where chimps might escape for one reason or another. Maybe there's a bit of negligence, maybe the fence has failed and we've not yet noticed, and they come out. Their immediate motivation is to go and look for food. And they know exactly where the food store is, and they know where the restaurant is. So those are the places they go to first. And there's one behavior that we have always thought, where did they learn to do this? They know how to open bottles with cups. They bite and take off the cup. And like I said, they learn from each other. Now probably, these are chimps that were probably in captivity first, living with humans, and they learned from humans how to open the bottles. And others have simply observed them and done the same, and it has worked. So they already know that these bottles have fluid in them, which is sweet, sodas and what. And one particular time they escaped, and we had a delivery of drinks, and they sat down and helped themselves. But some of the drinks were beers, and a bottle is a bottle. So they opened and tasted. And I was not there, but the guys were like, okay, they tested this one and it was not so nice. They tested another one, it was not so bad, they kept drinking it. And that particular chimp actually got several bottles and went to hide. And drank, and we looked for the chimp, It had blacked out somewhere in some corner until late at night when now it came to, and now came looking for the guys because it now found itself in a strange place and probably was experiencing some hangover. And so alcohol itself affects animals the same way it affects us. And we've seen it in lots of animals, the different intoxicants they get. And out there in the wild, they do get exposed to some fermented fruits, cocoa, some figs and nuts that undergo, depending on the season and the conditions, a fermentation process such that when they are consumed, they may still taste nice, but they have levels of alcohol which their physiology is not used to, and they get the effects of getting drunk, so to speak. So it happens. One thing that would be interesting to study is that do they actually seek out these fermented fruits and actively look for them in those particular periods of time so that they get drunk? That would be an interesting research to be done.
There are always a lot of things
Yeah.
to study about, and for me, these studies actually surprise me. They are always interesting, their findings are always interesting,
Yeah.
even on the studies that we are used to in medicine, and the studies on
Behavior.
wild animals,
Yeah.
very interesting. So finally, my final question would be, it's related to the first question that I asked you. After years of living with chimps, knowing them, what did you wish every person, let's say a person has never seen a chimp, what did you wish every person should know about chimpanzees? Something that might change the way they perceive them.
Yes. That's a very important question, and it is something I'm quite passionate about. I believe that as human beings, we only care for what we know. And if we don't know, then there is no reason for us to care. There is no connection, But once, the reason why people are connected to their pets is because they get to know them. They get to know their behaviors, they get to know their character, and they create that bond. They get a certain reward from them, either an emotional reward or companionship or whatever. So until the rest of us humans, and particularly Ugandans, get to learn about chimpanzees, that will help us to relate to them. Yeah? Once you know the chimpanzees, first of all, are very much like us, they behave very much like us, that already creates a bond, a virtual bond between us and them. And that picks, as a normal human, you get curious and you want to know a little bit more. And the more you learn about these animals, the more you care for them, and the more that you will be willing to protect them and to protect their habitats and protect their way of life, so to speak, their wild way of life. And that is the only way we're going to be able to conserve these chimpanzees, by spreading the word and getting people to know a little bit more about them. And that's why we run some of these tests and experiments that we do and these studies, to help people understand chimps more and to relate with them. That is why some of our studies, we do the same correlating studies with humans and show that relationship. So you know what? Chimps also have feelings. Animals have feelings. Animals also feel sorrow, also feel joy. And once we relate to that, we don't want another individual animal to go through the same bad emotions that we would go through, and we'll end up caring for them, and therefore we'll end up protecting them better. So that is really what drives us in doing the work that we do, and particularly myself. The more awareness that we can create about the chimpanzee as a species, the more we can improve its conservation status.
Thank you, Doctor. It has been a pleasure talking to you, learning from you a lot about chimps and their behavior. I look forward to interacting with you more and more.
Please, anytime.
Thank you.
Thank you too.